Sometimes you learn stuff about Pokemon that you never would have even fathomed being true, even when you're thinking about stuff in Pokemon that you would never fathom being true. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over some wild Pokemon trivia that you never would have believed. And I'm going to be starting things off with the fact that apparently Sharpedo was going to have an evolution at one point. Yeah, given how fierce this thing is, you never really would suspect it as evolving again, Mega Evolution aside. But according to some information that has been revealed by the recent Pokemon leaks and has since been documented by cut content website The Cutting Room Floor, this seems to be the case. Within an early list of new Pokemon for Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, Sharpedo is listed as the first stage of a two-stage line, implying that it was originally going to evolve into something instead of being the evolution. This could actually potentially be a reason why it got a Mega Evolution, in fact, because another Hoenn Pokemon that also has a Mega was also going to have an evolution according to this data as well, and that Pokemon would be none other than Mawile. According to this same early Pokemon list, Mawile was originally planned to have an evolution at one point, or potentially a pre-evolution. The only real details about these Pokemon that are specified on this list are that it's based on the Futakuchi Onna, which is Mawile's basis, it's a Steel type, which obviously Mawile is, and that it is a two-stage evolutionary family. So technically speaking, as far as we know based on this list, Mawile could have been planned for either a pre-evolution or an evolution. But given, like I said, that it seems like Sharpedo was going to have an evolution, and it also got a Mega Evolution, and Mawile was going to have some kind of evolution too, and it also got a Mega, it seems possible that these Megas could have happened because of these Pokemon's scrapped evolutions, and therefore this Mawile evolution could have indeed been an evolution after all, instead of just a pre-evolution. Mawile is not exactly the kind of Pokemon that I ever imagined having an evolution though, so personally, this one is actually pretty surprising. As exciting as the new cut content stuff is though, I've also got some stuff outside of this to share that's pretty cool too. So the TCG is known to often hide cool little Easter eggs and references in its artwork, but a recent example of this is not the kind of thing that you would ever expect to see. The story begins with this very pleasant looking Octillery card from the Brilliant Stars expansion, where this Octillery is waving very kindly at this lady who is fishing. But then, this story takes a very dark turn, as in this Basculin card from the Fusion Strike expansion, we see this group of Basculin ripping apart the exact same beanie that this girl was wearing in the Octillery card, with both cards also taking place at similar looking docks. So these cards are more or less implying that this lady fell into the water somehow, and these Basculin ate her alive. Or, at the very least, her hat just fell into the water and they ate that instead, but still. This is definitely one of the crazier TCG Easter eggs that is out there, but not gonna lie, it's also pretty cool at the same time. This next one is more of a keen observation rather than a hidden Easter egg, but it's genuinely one of the last things I feel like anyone would have thought would be an actual thing in a Pokemon game. I think everyone, upon playing Scarlet and Violet for the first time, were absolutely shocked to learn that the professors of these games were killed by Koraidon and Miraidon during their research. That on its own, I feel like, is something we never expected to see. But this gets even crazier. A key part of this whole plot twist is Arven, who we've known for a while at this point in the game is the son of the professor. So we learn in a really sad way in this moment why his mom and dad haven't contacted him much lately. With that being said, what is perhaps an unintended consequence of this storyline is that you later face and defeat the Koraidon and Miraidon that killed the professor at the end of the main story. and then you can later catch this same Koraidon and Miraidon in Area 0. And seeing as how you also have the chance to battle Arven after completing the main story as well in either the Academy Ace tournament or at Blueberry Academy, you are actually able to battle and defeat Arven with the very Pokemon that killed his parents. Which, yeah, is one scenario that I genuinely never would have believed would ever be possible in a Pokemon game. So this one's pretty wild. Next, I'd like to jump in here really quick to say that if you're enjoying this video and you like my content, consider picking up something from my merch store to help it out. Every order supports the channel immensely and makes a huge difference in making videos possible, so it's extremely appreciated. But also, the merch is just pretty next level and really cool at the same time. Right now, we've got these plushies of my mascot Fulkachi, which also come with a limited edition promo card of Fulkachi, which is just cool beyond words. Like, honestly, this card looks amazing. And then we've also got an adorable plushie of Narwade from my Pokemon Cardinal series. Both plushies are amazing. They're super soft, squishy, and just awesome to have and look great with any gaming collection. So give them a look and order one for yourself with the link in the description. Every order is greatly appreciated, and they would also make a great gift for the holidays, I'm just saying. So yeah, check that out, and now back to the trivia. Moving along though, I think most people agree that Victini is a pretty awesome Pokemon. But what if I told you that even though it came out in Gen 5, its concept could potentially date all the way back to Generation 2? For full disclosure, what I am about to discuss is not concrete fact at this point and is just speculation, but it's definitely still really interesting. So a few years ago, when we were getting all of those gold and silver leaks, this Pokemon was discovered amongst all of the other cut content. While cool, this guy wasn't exactly eye-catching until the more recent Terra leak that just revealed a ton more beta info. And amongst all of that info was this Pokemon that was found amongst the cut Pokemon of Ruby and Sapphire. And the interesting thing is that these two seem to be one and the same. What's also interesting is that the Gen 3 iteration of this Pokemon in particular seems to be based on Usagi Ringo, which is a practice of cutting up apple slices to make them look like cute little bunnies, which is exactly what Victini is based on. So basically, the idea for what would become Victini was conceived as early as Generation 2. And while we have no idea how much of a role, if any, these designs had in actually designing Victini itself, there is at least a decent chance that these beta Pokemon were referred back to in some way when coming up with the idea and the design for Victini, which is genuinely insane. It just goes to show that we really have no idea what goes on behind the curtain at Game Freak, and there are some insane stories to be had behind the creation of these games and all of the Pokemon that we get in these games as well. Alright, so moving along now, I have one more piece of fun speculation for you before we get back into the more concrete factual stuff. But like the Victini one, this one is pretty cool. So at face value, you would never imagine Masquerain and Snorunt having anything to do with each other whatsoever, other than both being Hoenn Pokemon. But what if I told you that Snorunt was actually inspired by the beta design of Masquerain? It sounds pretty unbelievable, but it just so happens that Masquerain's beta design was also a part of these recent leaks, and if you compare it side by side with Snorunt, they look almost identical. In fact, the wings on the beta Masquerain are really the only thing that separates these two. Otherwise, this beta Masquerain is almost an exact recreation of Snorunt, which heavily suggests that these two have something to do with each other. Either that, or this is just the biggest coincidence of all time. With that said, Snorunt as a Pokemon is more specifically inspired by the Yukiwarashi, which are Japanese snow spirits that take the form of a child. wild, and you can definitely see the resemblance there to Snorunt as well. But in terms of how they decided to translate that into a Pokemon design, I genuinely think you would be hard-pressed to say that this Masquerain design had absolutely nothing to do with it at all, given how similar they look. And in my opinion, it's likely that Game Freak liked the look of this beta Masquerain design and eventually found a use for it by recycling it into Snorunt's design. And to think that two Pokemon as seemingly unrelated as this could have that kind of connection to one another is pretty mind-blowing. When it comes to cut content, one thing that doesn't often get a lot of attention are moves. But a very interesting move was recently revealed as a part of these leaks that was planned for Pokemon Black and White. It was known as Melt, and it was a fire-type move that would have been able to turn, or melt if you will, Steel-type Pokemon into normal types, and Ice-type Pokemon into water types. To me, this is a really creative and interesting effect for a move to have, and while I know that we do have other type-changing moves at this point, I feel like this one genuinely had some really cool potential. Maybe they thought it was too niche or situational or something like that, and that's why they cut it, but I feel like this is something that would be awesome to actually have in the games, so hopefully they'll revisit this concept at some point in the future. And speaking of fire, would you have believed that Seviper was once a fire type? I know that that never crossed my mind, but it's true. This Pokemon, also found amongst all of the recent leaks, was a fire snake Pokemon designed for Gen 3. And while it never made the final games in this form, it was slowly but surely reworked over time into Seviper. In the early Pokemon list that I referenced before, a poison-type, non-evolving snake Pokemon can be found, which is obviously Seviper, but it uses the name of this fire snake Pokemon at this time, showing how this Pokemon was steadily reworked into the Seviper that we know today, which is pretty interesting. Similar to how you wouldn't have suspected Masquerain and Snorunt to have anything to do with each other, you probably wouldn't have thought about Vivillon and Noibat having anything to do with each other either, but apparently they have a pretty interesting connection. Amongst these leaks, some concept art for Noibat was also revealed, and while it is just concept art, it showcases a variety of different colors of Noibat that are labeled as belonging to different environments, such as the tundra or the desert. This kind of concept is exactly what we see Vivillon do in the final Pokemon X and Y. So it seems that this concept actually originated with Noibat instead of Vivillon. And while it would have been way cooler on Noibat, if I'm being completely honest, it's really cool to learn about a super unexpected connection between two seemingly unrelated Pokemon like this. If you guys have enjoyed learning about all this stuff though, be sure to leave the video a like and let me know your thoughts in the comments. That's all I've got for today, but I'll be back with another new video soon, so until then, as always, thanks so much for watching this one, I really appreciate it, and until the next one, as always, I will smell you guys later.